It stood higher than anything mankind had ever imagined, a colossal monument of pride and power. 91 meters tall, built from millions of bricks fired at over 800 degrees Celsius, rising in perfect spirals toward the heavens. From afar, it seemed to pierce the clouds, a creation so massive that even distant travelers could see its shadow stretching across the plain of Shinar. This was not merely a tower. It was humanity's declaration of independence from God, a symbol of unity, ambition, and rebellion. But what began as a dream of greatness would soon become a haunting reminder of human limitation. Before the first brick was laid, the people faced an almost impossible challenge: the production of materials. The land around Shinar offered endless clay, but little else. They had to carry wood from miles away to keep their furnaces burning day and night. At sunrise, long lines of men marched to the riverbanks, digging heavy mud with crude wooden tools, loading baskets that weighed more than their bodies could bear. The air shimmered with heat as furnaces blazed without rest. The sound of cracking bricks echoed through the valley, and the sky turned gray with smoke. Genesis 11:3 records their determination. "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." Those words may sound simple, but behind them were days of labor, nights without sleep, and countless lives burned by fire and exhaustion. The heat inside the kilns reached over 800 degrees Celsius. Men fainted, some never woke up. Their arms were scarred, their lungs filled with ash, yet they kept going. To them, this wasn't just a tower, it was a promise, a chance to prove that humanity could stand equal with heaven itself. They believed that together they could achieve anything. No limits, no divine authority, no boundaries. It was the perfect illusion of power, and the perfect trap. Once the bricks were ready, came the next nightmare: transportation. Without cranes, without machines, they relied on human strength alone. Historians believe they built a giant spiral ramp, wrapping around the tower from the ground to the top, wide enough for men and animals to walk side by side. Each day, thousands climbed that ramp carrying 50 to 100 kilograms of bricks on their backs. The scorching Mesopotamian sun burned down, reaching over 40 degrees Celsius. Sweat mixed with dust. The air grew heavy and dry. Some men collapsed mid-ascent, others fell and vanished into the haze below. But even as bodies were buried in the earth, the tower continued to rise, one layer after another, reaching closer to the clouds. At such heights, the wind turned violent. It howled through the bricks, shaking scaffolds and tearing loose the ropes. Cracks began to form on the upper levels, and supervisors debated whether to stop or keep building. But fear of failure outweighed common sense. They believed stopping would mean weakness. So they pushed harder. They sealed every gap with boiling black bitumen, a tar-like substance heated until it burned the skin and filled the air with toxic fumes. It made the walls waterproof and strong, but it poisoned the men who worked with it. Their hands were blistered, their lungs coated with smoke. Still, they carried on. The tower grew darker, heavier, and more dangerous with each passing day. As the structure climbed higher, it began to dominate the horizon. Farmers in nearby lands could see it glimmering in the distance, a rising mountain of man's ambition. Stories spread across regions. Some believed it would reach the stars. Others whispered that it was cursed. Kings from neighboring lands sent spies to see if the rumors were true, and what they found left them speechless. A city surrounding the base of the tower, full of workers, families, and soldiers protecting what they called the gateway to heaven. Communication became the next great challenge. Thousands of men spread across dozens of levels, shouting over wind, noise, and distance. There were no radios, no written orders, only horns, flags, and shouted commands. A red flag meant, "Bring more bricks." A white one, "Pause." A black flag meant danger. But in the confusion, mistakes became constant. One wrong signal, one misunderstood word, and part of the tower could collapse in seconds. The men grew paranoid, frustrated and angry. Rumors spread, whispers of divine anger, of curses, of something unnatural watching them from above. And then it happened. At first, it was small. A worker giving an order that no one understood. Another shouting back in a strange tongue. The supervisors tried to restore order, but every sentence turned into chaos. Voices that once united now divided them completely. Genesis 11:7 says, "Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand one another." The moment God intervened, the entire project fell into madness. Arguments turned into fights, bricks fell, the furnaces went cold. No one could continue, because no one could understand. The unity that had built the tower was gone forever. Genesis 11:8 continues, "So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city." Families who still understood one another gathered their belongings and fled in different directions, north, south, east, and west. These groups became the roots of new nations, new tongues, and new cultures. And, at the center of it all, the tower remained, silent, unfinished, half buried in dust and memory. A monument not to power, but to pride, to the danger of unity without purpose, to what happens when man tries to take the throne of God. Years passed. The plain of Shinar grew quiet. The fires died out. The once mighty ramps crumbled into the earth. Birds nested in the cracks where men once stood. Travelers who crossed the region would tell stories of a ruined structure lost in the sand, a place where the wind whispered in strange tones, as if the languages once spoken there still lingered in the air. Generations later, the ruins of Babel became a warning told to kings and empires that dared to defy heaven. Babylon, Egypt, Rome, all built monuments of pride, and all eventually fell, just as Babel did, because the message was never about the bricks or the height. It was about the heart of man, the desire to rise above God rather than walk beside him. Even today, the spirit of Babel lives on, in every system built on arrogance, in every empire that forgets humility. And though the ruins may have faded, the lesson never has. No matter how advanced we become, no matter how far we reach, no human structure can rise higher than the will of God. The Tower of Babel still whispers its message today. Every empire that rises in pride will one day fall in silence. Every monument built for glory will crumble to dust. But those who build with humility, those who walk with faith, their legacy endures forever.